Hey everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 32 in the podcast series. This one is all about maker madness. I've got so much stuff going on right now. It's really kind of crazy. I never have more than one sweater on the needles at once, but I do. And I've got some other finished objects to show you that are a little unorthodox today. So we'll jump right in. You can find me just about everywhere as Knitting the Stash, on YouTube obviously, and on Ravelry and Instagram, and on the blog, which is knittingthestash.wordpress.com. Welcome to new viewers. This is a podcast that's mostly about knitting, spinning, some DIY, and fiber community thrown in for good measure. And welcome back to all of you who have been with me for a while. It's so nice to see you. I know there are tons and tons of podcasts out there because I watch a lot of them myself, and keeping up can be difficult. And I really just appreciate all the time you spend with me, and the time we spend on Instagram together and Ravelry, and just your questions and comments and messages. So please keep all of that coming. I really do try to respond to everyone. Sometimes that inbox fills up a little bit, but I do my best. And if I haven't gotten back to your message, I will very shortly. So thank you so much for tuning in today. On the docket, I've got an unusual FO for you. I have a couple sweaters that are in the works, and finished spin, a little update on the yarns of Ireland for you, and some discussion of US sheep breeds. So we got a lot of stuff going on. There's actually a couple giveaways too, so I'm just gonna try to get to it all. We'll see what happens. But first off, I have to tell you guys, I kind of mentioned it last episode, and I've been waiting so long to tell you guys about this. It's kind of exciting. For those of you who know me, or have been following the podcast or the blog for a while, you know I'm an academic. So I'm a professor at the University of Illinois, and I've been working for the last 4 years. Has it been 4 years? I think it's been 4 years. For 4 years I've been working on a book. This is my second book that I've written, and I'm just super happy to see it come out. So this is my finished object for you guys, which is not knitting, but it's a book, and that's pretty exciting. It's called Instrumental Intimacy, EEG Wearables and Neuroscientific Control. And it's actually, it's a pretty fun book for you guys who know about wearables, like you think about Fitbits or smartwatches or all that kind of stuff. This one is about wearables that you actually put on your head, and they measure the electrical activity of your brain, and they're supposed to be able to help you optimize your life, like your sleep or your sport performance, or your bicycle ride to work, and where it's stressful and where it's not. And there's a lot of really wacky EEG wearables out there, and this book kind of talks about all of them and puts them in the context of the history of EEG, and like why we started to think we should have conscious control of our brain, and how EEG has kind of allowed that to happen. So it's got really fun chapter titles like Public Displays of Arousal, and it's I love the cover, I love the design they did, and I'm just super excited about it. So I wanted to share it with you guys, and it's very rare, I think, that on a knitting podcast you get to share a finished object that is a book written by you, but I'm pretty happy to do it, and this is it. So yay! Years and years of my life in 150 pages. It's funny because it's a book that I pretty much wrote in like 5 o'clock in the morning every day. I would get up and write before everybody was awake. So I'm kind of relieved at this point to not have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning anymore to do that. But it was worth it, and it's a really fun process, and I do, as much as I love my knitting, I do love my research, and this was a really fun project to work on. So there you go. Yay! Am I like excited enough? I think so. All right, the other finished object I have for you this week is actually related to fiber, and it is a finished spin for you. This is 100% Targhee that I spun up as a gift to send off to Albina in Ireland. And this was spun, it's a 2-ply. Let's see if the camera will pick it up. There you go. It's a 2-ply, 100% Targhee wool. And Targhee is one of these American breeds that I was telling you about. There really aren't many American breeds of sheep that are like really like developed in America. And I actually, when Albina started asking me do I have any hand spun that's just American sheep? I was like, well, not solely American sheep. So I looked at my Who's Who in U.S. Sheep Breeds poster, which, yes, I have it hanging on my wall in my yarn room. And it's really fun. On the front side, it has all these different sheep breeds. Not all of them. This is definitely not an exclusive list. This is just like a partial list. And then on the back, it has pictures of more of the sheep. And I just love it because it's a cool sheep poster. And I got it actually at, sorry about all the noise, I got it actually at one of our guild events, the Bourse, which is an awesome event where everybody brings all the stuff that they don't really want anymore, but they think is still pretty cool, and we all just go around the room and you pay little bits and pieces for little things, or people are giving magazines away for free, or et cetera, et cetera. I think I got this poster for like $2 from someone who had it up in their yarn room for many years. And it's really fun. I just like having pictures of sheep in my yarn room. So back to the story. Targhee, it says on here, I'll just read to you what it says. Targhee was developed in 1926 by the U.S. Sheep Experiment Station in Idaho. And Targhee has a 3/4 fine wool and 1/4 long wool from Rambouillet, Lincoln, Rambouillet, and Corriedale and Columbia crosses. It's kind of like an intermediate sized sheep, white face, wool on the legs, durable, adaptable to various climates. And it yields, it says here, it yields a heavy medium fleece excellent for spinning, which I think is true. And I've made a sweater out of 100% Targhee wool, not superwash or anything. And I found it to be really springy and spongy, very soft. And it had like almost more drape than I was used to with like a Merino or some of the other, like Shetland or some of the other breeds that I'm used to working with for sweaters. So I was really curious to spin some up and see what how my hand spun kind of compared, hand spinning experience compared to the mill spun. And I do think this stuff is super, it came out again, super kind of springy and spongy. I mean, you can feel it. It's like a big squish ball. And when you knit with it, it really does. The elasticity is kind of amazing on this stuff. It kind of springs back. It's a little bit dull, and I was talking to, in terms of luster, I was talking to Kathy at my guild meeting last week about that. And if it had more kind of long wool mixed in with it, it would have more luster than it does. So this is more of a matte kind of finish, which I think is kind of cool. And it's in these beautiful blues, which I love the way they kind of came together. I like a kind of single color like this that had some variation, so it's not just flat. I really love heathered colors. This isn't quite heathered, but it's marled a little bit, and it's got enough variation that you can really kind of see the texture of the yarn, which I like very much. So I spun it on my Shocked Ladybug at a 14:1 ratio, and pre-wash, I think I came up with close to 450 yards, which is quite a lot for a 2-ply. And this was just 4 ounces of fiber, and I'm trying to find there's my tag. This is from CJ Fibers, which is one of my buddies on Facebook, and she said it's Targhee with a little heart. So CJ's Fibers, she does some beautiful work, and I have beautiful dyeing. I have a few more of her what do you call them, bumps of fiber in my stash, and I'm kind of looking forward to spinning those up. I have some Merino and some Shetland from her as well. So back to the story one more time. So Targhee is one of these kind of US developed breeds, and most of them are developed at that US Sheep Experiment Station in Idaho. The other ones that I think of when I think of that kind of US Experiment Station are Polypay, and Polypay is on here, but not a picture, so I'll just read you a little bit about Polypay. It's a synthetic breed developed at that experiment station in Idaho. And it's from initial crosses of Targhee, Dorset, Rambouillet, and Finn sheep. These crosses are then crossed to form a 4-breed cross. And whoever my geneticists are out there who do sheep breeding, I'd love to hear in the comments a little bit more about how this all works. So if anybody else knows anything about that, please share. So the lines are then closed with intensive within-line selection for lamb production based on twice-a-year lambing. Rambouillet and Targhee breeding is included to retain hardiness, herding instinct, size, and long breeding season. And so the Polypay is one of the other hand spuns that I had spun up to send to Albina. and I actually did that as a 2-ply and I did it for Spinzilla, where I spun the polypay to one bobbin and some fin actually to another bobbin. And it's cool to hear that the polypay has fin in it. So it kind of makes sense as a 2-ply. So, and then I applied the two together. So they're really pretty skeins that are just white, and I'm going to send those along to Albina. So along with a few other little things. So Albina, you have a nice little package coming to you. Albina and Albina is LB HandKnits, and she's the one who offered the giveaway that I'll talk about in a little while, and she's the one I'm test knitting a sweater for, and she's the designer of this sweater, which is the Laitis sweater, so I'll talk about that in a minute. So there's lots going on with Albina of late, and we've done a little bit of a yarn swap. So she wanted some American breeds, and she sent me some beautiful Irish wool. And since last episode was all things Irish, I thought I'd share with you. These were the 3 Irish dyers that she sent me, which I think are just so beautiful. So this first one is a superwash merino sock yarn, and it's from Ellie and Ada. And if you check out Albina's LB HandKnits blog, she has some great information about Irish independent dyers. And you can read about them, check out their shops, all the links are there. I'll link to it in the show notes so that you can find that exact page, but it's really fun to kind of check out the yarns and the inty dyers of another country. This one, which is, she knows I love purple, so she sent, this is Irish Fairytale yarns, which I fell in love with when I looked at their website. I really like their presentation and the way they do things. This again is a merino nylon, and this last one is from Dye Candy, which is a kind of funky independent Irish yarn brand. And this one is a merino silk cashmere blend, and it's super soft. So Albina sent along a few other little yarns and some challenge yarn, I might add. Gotta figure out something to knit with this, which is a really cool yarn from Norway. And I'm really not sure exactly what I'm gonna make with it yet, because it is so bright orange. I should probably give it to Spencer is what I should do, because he can do things with the fluorescent colorways, as we all saw on the hat episode. So maybe I'll pass this one on to him, but that would be kind of giving up on the challenge that Albina set for me, which is to do something with that yarn. So I'll figure it out. So yeah, and there are other American sheep breeds, not too many more. I always think of the Targhee, the polypay, CVM, California Variegated Mutant. I have some of that downstairs that was mill spun and that I got in Arizona, it's a really interesting yarn, and I knit Spencer's Manning Park hat out of it partially. So if you want to see that, you can head over to that Ravelry link and see what it looks like all knit up. So there are some cool US breeds out there. They're more like synthetic, or these kind of cross breeds. They're not kind of native to the United States in any kind of way. But it's really interesting to think about how sheep breeding works and what kinds of characteristics we've come to think of as desirable, and to develop those in the United States. So it's worth a look, worth a think. And Albina, I appreciate the opportunity to think about American breeds of sheep and to spin up all that Targhee, which was really, really fun. Okay, I'm gonna roll up the poster. It's gonna be loud. I have to hang it back up on the wall after this. Okay, so those are my FOs. I have a book and I have a skein of yarn. What else do I have? I have some whips for you, and one of them is sitting right next to me. So you've probably been hearing about the Laitis sweater. I've been posting about it on the Instagram feed, and I've been talking about it on the podcast. So the Laitis sweater is this beautiful kind of lattice or kind of textured cable sweater, and I think you can see the texture in there. It looks like it's coming through. And it's a nice, the cable pattern is simple enough for a beginner. If you're interested in getting into cables, this would be a good sweater to start with. It's a top-down construction, so you do start at the neck, you work down, you do your increases over the shoulders, and then you leave your sleeves over here with some provisional cast on, so they're ready to go. You just knit those down, and the front and back are exactly the same. The pattern continues. So if you're interested in trying to start a kind of cable-y sweater, this one's pretty simple because you don't have to do any seaming, and size-wise, it's a nice A-line pattern, so you're not really having to worry about making sure that you're increasing for your bust and decreasing for your waist and increasing for your hips again. Just very simple, kind of flattering A-line pattern. And I think Albina did a nice job with the design. It's really kind of the ease of it is nice. It fits me. I tried it on. One thing I've been talking to Albina about is the sizing and the fit, because when I swatched, I wasn't quite getting gauge. But when I cast on with the needles that were smaller and would give me gauge, I didn't like the fabric that I was getting. So I went back up to 1 needle size for the neck and then the next needle size for the body, and I'm actually pretty happy with the fit of this. When I put it on, it feels good. And Albina has talked to me a little bit about how she blocked it. I asked her, like, how aggressively did you block it? Because it's an all-over kind of cable pattern. And she said she really aggressively blocked it, and so that's what I'm going to do too. And that helps, that'll help the cables lay really flat on here, and it'll give it a kind of finished look. If you check out the pattern page for Laitis on Ravelry, you'll see a beautiful version in exactly this color purple. And the model who's wearing it, that sweater it's blocked to within an inch of its life, really, to allow it to kind of sit very flatteringly on her body. So that's my plan. What I've been struggling with is this neckline, because I absolutely love the neckline, it's one of the reasons I fell in love with the sweater, was the fact that it has this funky funnel neck. But in the beginning, when I started knitting, I'm working with S-twist wool, which is the wool that's recommended for the pattern. I know, right? Weird for me to do that for once. But I really wanted to try it out because it's an Irish wool, and I'm loving working with it. It's really fun and rustic and beautiful. And it's nice to know where your wool came from, which is straight out of Ireland. Milled there, grown there, sheared there, everything there. But because of that, it's a little bit rustic, scratchy. Some people might call it scratchy. I just call it rustic. And so I wanted to line it. So I made a big lining for it out of this kind of superwash soft purple from Tanis Fiber Arts. And I've done that with a number of my sweaters, where I'll put, if it's kind of rustic wool, like island wool, or the Shetland that I have for my Alias pullovers, each of those has a lining in the collar so that it just doesn't prickle you at all. And I thought, well, I need a full lining for this. And so I did it. And what happened was, because the lining made this whole neck really stiff, so I kind of stood up like a neck brace is like the way to put it. And I thought, that's not what Albina's going for in her design. It's not really flattering, so it's not exactly what I want to go for. So I ended up taking out the lining, and it's cool. Because it's a top-down sweater, and I started with a cast-on at the top for this lining, I just took out my cast-on very methodically. I mean, it was a little bit of a pain in the butt, but it worked. And then I could just unwind it down to however far I wanted to go. And I decided to keep about 3/4 or an inch of the lining here at the top. I'm thinking I'm gonna turn it, because I do have a purled row here, so that I could turn the hem and have a nice little lining just right up here where it might sit or kind of touch you more often. I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm going to stick with it, but I left all of the yarn here for either tacking in or taking out, so that I can decide if this neck length is the right neck length for me. Since I changed needle size for the pattern, I think my neck is a little bit longer than the recommended gauge would be for the number of rows. And what I may end up doing, if I don't like the full length of the neck when I'm finished, is I'll just pop this out, the bind off, one more time. This time it's a bind off, because I bound off once I knit back a little bit. Or I just bound off after I pulled it out. I can always pop that bind off and unravel all the way down, because this is continuous into this yarn. I just switched over. And I can unravel it down to the right height for me for the neck, which is really convenient with a top-down sweater. It's like, oof, if you're not sure about the neck, that's one way to go with it. So I can unravel it down to whatever level I really like, and I might even unravel it down a little bit further so that I can continue this cool element of the pattern, which is a very short repeat up here. I might mirror that down below, and then put the lining back on. So I don't know, that's the one part of the sweater where I'm just kind of like, I'm not sure. I want it to be just right. You know, it's like one of those things with sweaters where if you're gonna wear it, you want that neckline to be just right. And that was something that I encountered with Spencer's sweater. And I think I talked about it on here. This is Spencer's all over cable sweater. When I pulled, or when I bound off the neck for this one, the collar, it ended up, I didn't do the stretchy bind-off at first because I thought, oh, you don't want like a floppy collar. And it was like a noose or something. It was just like really tight and uncomfortable. So I took it all back out and untacked it all, undid the bind-off, and did a stretchy bind-off. And my favorite stretchy bind-off is to do, you knit one, you knit a second stitch, and then you, how would you say this? What's the technical term for it? I put my left needle back through those two loops and knit through both those loops. So you get an extra bit of yarn in your bind off, and that leads to a little bit more stretchy, so it's much easier to get in and out of the sweater. So I think that kind of stuff matters, and I think necklines matter a lot because that's kind of the place where you encounter the sweater on your body, in your skin. Even if you're wearing a shirt underneath, that's kind of like the point of contact. So I think necks are pretty important, and I'm going to fiddle with this one until the end, probably. I love everything else about this sweater. I've tried it on. The sleeve caps are perfect. I love that I was able to modify the pattern just a little bit to make it fit my shoulders. I've talked about this on the podcast before. My shoulders are really wide, and this pattern allowed me to add an extra inch or 2.5 inches to the pattern size here with no problems for the actual sweater. It's really great. And so I'm really happy with it, and I can't wait to finish it. It's going incredibly fast at this point, and I think, you know, another week or so and I'll be finished. So that is an awesome whip. Whips are good when they're working and they're on their way. Let me switch out the mannequin and I'll show you the other work in progress, okay? Okay. Change accomplished. So when last I spoke to you on episode 31, this is the other LB HandKnits from Albina design that I'm working on, and this is a test knit. It's called Sunny Every Day, and I think she's planning on releasing it sometime in March. I'm not exactly positive, but I know a lot of you expressed interest in this particular pattern, so I'll keep you updated on when it's actually out. Last time we met, I think I had just finished the yoke, maybe a little bit down to here. It's going really well. I'm down to the last little bit here. You can see there's the bottom of it. And all it needs is the lower hem. And Albina's sending along the next little bit of instructions for that. And I think it'll mirror some of the cable work up here down below, and it's hit really nicely on the hip. Since so many of you did express interest, I just want to reiterate, this is an awesome pattern to knit. Really, again, very elegant but doable cables for anyone who's interested in kind of working on texture, but you haven't worked on texture very much before. And since it is a top-down seamless sweater, there's none of those other, you know, little fiddly things that you might have to worry about. So it's a great, I would say it's a great sweater to get started on your texture cable knitting with. And a lot of you said you loved the yarn, and this is a Donegal tweed. I think I pronounced it correctly that time around. I just spoke with Albina about how to pronounce, I was saying Donegal, and she said, no, it's Donegal, with the stress on the second syllable and Donny as the kind of first bit, so it's like Donegal. I'm trying to break myself with the habit of saying Donegal. It's a Donegal tweed, and it's a really beautiful singles yarn that I think is showing off the texture really surprisingly well, and it's a beautiful color, and I think it'll look really cool once I put it on. It's kind of similar. It's in this kind of family, right, of this color that I'm wearing right now. So that test knit is going well, and again, I hope that one will be done. Maybe on the next podcast I'll just have 2 sweaters for you, which would be crazy, but this is kind of Maker Madness, right, episode. I've had like, the book is out, I've got 2 sweaters on the needles, there's like stuff coming in the mail, stuff going in the mail. It's a little bit crazy around here, and I'm loving it because after that kind of like crazy slump of time last semester when I was just like eaten alive by teaching 3 classes, I'm really happy to have a little bit of headspace to be working on this kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's the other finish or work in progress, and I just have a few things for you from the mailroom and some giveaways to end this podcast with, so let's turn over to those things now. Okay, so the mailbox this week was humming, and in part because Albina's package arrived from Ireland, which was awesome to see, but also because Sarah Hunt of Fibertrek's yarn arrived. And for those of you who watch Fibertrek, it was one of my first podcasts that I started watching, and I absolutely love everything about watching Sarah and listening to her talk about yarn and wool, and she would read from books. There was, I think, the Shakleton make-along was going on at that time, and she was reading Shakleton's story. It was just, there's something about Sarah that I absolutely love, and I think many of you watch Sarah as well. And so those of you who watch her know that she has been working on her own finished object, this beautiful yarn that she's produced. It's a Shakleton yarn, and here's the cool tag. It came in the mail. I just got one skein of it. I wanted to check it out. This is the Flat Island Fleece from Flat Island, Maine, and it is 10% silk and 90% wool. It's 200 yards for 20 ounces, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, you can kind of see, I think you'll be able to see the color, yeah. It's a beautiful 2-ply mill-spun yarn that was produced by someone with sheep that she recognized, and she's been involved in the shearing of the sheep, and she knows the person who's milling it and the whole deal. And for those of you who are interested in those kinds of place-based or soulful stash yarns, this is definitely it. I think she told me that she completely sold out, of course, and that there were actually some folks who wanted to get some who couldn't. And I think that's a pretty exciting thing and a good sign for those folks who are out there who are wanting to make yarn and really make a cool yarn out of a certain kind of product. And that's what's going on with the Irish yarn I was talking about last episode, the S-Twist wool. And that's what's going on with Jennifer's yarn that I showed you a couple episodes ago, the Pace and Presence yarn from Colorado. So there's tons of really awesome makers out there who are putting their minds to making beautiful yarn, and I'm really so happy to have just a little piece of Sarah's adventure here in my hand. I have no idea what it's going to become. I think it'll be mashed up. I'll have to mash it up with something else because it's so little, but I also might just make something really cute and special with it. I'm not sure. And it's really just, it's just really awesome, and it's super soft and squishy. So to those of you who didn't get any, next time. And to those of you who did get a little piece of Shakleton, I hope you're enjoying yours as well. So that was one thing that came in the mailbox. The other thing that came in the mailbox is for the Knit Together project. So those of you who have been following for a long time know about the Knit Together project. Folks are sending in 8x8 inch squares, and once I receive enough of them, I'm going to start putting them together into a Knit Together blanket. Anyone can get involved. If you want to send an 8x8 inch square, that's awesome. Tell me about the yarn, the story of the yarn, the pattern, the story of the pattern, whatever it is. I want it to have some kind of story to it, and it's just got to be 8x8 inches, and you mail it to me, and you can be entered to win the finished blanket. I think that's pretty cool. So the one I received this past week is from Maria of the Ninja Chickens podcast, and you can check out her discussion of the square. I'm not going to ruin it for you too much because it's a really cool story, but this is her beautiful square, and I just love the texture of it. I love the stripe that she put in it. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous square, and it has a good feel to it, a really nice kind of drape, and well done, Maria. I will read a little bit of what she sent so that you can have a sense of the story, but I do want to encourage you to get over to her podcast, Ninja Chickens podcast, which is really fun to listen to. She's also a really laid back, kind of cool person who does dyeing, lots of natural dyeing on silk and yarn, and I think she's got a good kind of, she's got a good soul. She's just a cool kind of person, and I like hanging out with her on her podcast. Okay, so Maria said, "This beautiful yarn is the result of a shearing that I took part in 2016. A local friend inherited a small flock of rare Navajo Churro sheep in need of some TLC. We gathered a group of ladies, turned on classical music, and took the sheep to the spa. I had the fleeces spun at a local mill and knit this square in what remained of a traditional Navajo rug weaving." Oh, what reminded me of a traditional Navajo rug weaving. So it is really cool, great story, and thank you so much for Maria for sending this in. If anyone else wants to get involved in the Knit Together project, please do so. There's a really simple address that I'll put on the screen right here, which is just knittingthestash.wordpress.com/KTP. You can find out all the details there and get involved, and I just love sharing your stories and receiving these little goodies in the mail, and I can't wait to put the rest of the blanket together and get to show you all what you have accomplished, your finished object, which will be this beautiful knit together project. Let's see, what else was there today? I think, oh, the giveaways. That's the important things for you guys at the end here. I have 2 giveaways going on actually. The first one was for the S-Twist wool and pattern for Albina's new hat. And what I've got here is the skein of yarn to give away and the coupon code for the hat. And you probably saw it go across Instagram. I posted about it on the blog. And we have a winner for this giveaway, and that is, I did a random number generator. The winner is Nana from Norway. So talk about around the world and back again. This yarn is straight from Ireland, and it is going to go straight to Norway now. So Nana, congratulations on winning the wool and the coupon code for the hat. I will pop these in the mail once I get your postal information. Thanks for everyone who sent in comments for that giveaway. You guys all really loved Albina's patterns, the Ripple and Bloom, the Laitis, and both the sweater and the hat. And this new cardigan were kind of your favorites. So it was really interesting to hear that, and I think Albina will be thrilled to know that you guys were all visiting her site and thinking about which patterns you liked most of hers. So thanks for participating, that's really awesome of you. I have a current giveaway going on right now, and I'm actually going to extend it until Monday, February 26th, so that all of you podcast listeners can get in on it. And it is a giveaway for Kephren Knitting Studios. I did an interview with Kephren Pritchett on the blog last weekend, and she is an awesome designer, and she's a tech editor for knitting patterns. So talk about someone who knows what goes into a good pattern. That is Kephren. She's got a great blog up called Kephren Knitting Studios that has tons of links and information, knitting techniques. She's a designer who's had patterns published in Knit Picks, in the big knitting magazines that you'd recognize. And the giveaway is I have 3 coupon codes for her patterns, and you could pick out any pattern you want with these coupon codes. So what I'm asking everyone to do for this particular giveaway is to go to her website and tell us which pattern you'd like to knit, similar to the LB HandKnits giveaway. I'd like to know which one, if you won the coupon code, which one would you want to knit? She has shawls, she has sweaters, she has cardigans, and I'm just going to pull up a quick image here so that you can see what's going on. So this is Kephren Pritchett's Ravelry page, I think you can see there. And you can see some of the beautiful patterns that she has up online. And I hope so many of you will get involved in this giveaway and leave a comment about which pattern you'd like to knit if you win one of those coupon codes. I'll leave you can do it here on the YouTube episode. You can do it in the Ravelry thread that I have set up for the Kephren Knitting. You can leave your comments in either place. And I can't wait to see who wins. I'll close everything down on Monday and do a draw and give out those coupon codes. So awesome. So I think that's it for today. I really wish you guys could kind of see around me right now in the yarn room in the studio. There's just stuff sprawled everywhere. And I'm a little, like I said, maker madness. I'm a little overwhelmed by it all at the moment. But it will get tidied up. I did my annual spring cleaning of the yarn room last week with Spencer's help, and that's always a good thing to do. I do it at least 2-3 times a year, kind of pull everything out, mop it all down, dust it up, put it all back together in a better way and get rid of some stuff. So that happened, and I also did a spring cleaning of my computer, so I can actually get this podcast out to you guys. My computer's memory was, it was hiding these files in the deleted folder. Do you really want to delete them? No! So my memory on my computer looked like it was completely maxed out, and I had deleted everything, and I have another hard drive I was putting stuff on, and it was just like, where are these hidden files? and I finally found them. So that was my computer's spring cleaning as well. And so now I can take this podcast and actually put it through iMovie and make it work for you guys. So I'm kind of thankful about that. In any case, it was nice to spend some time with you. Thanks for coming to hang out. Go enter for that giveaway right after you watch this. Just go do it. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.